Hey, everybody. How are you guys doing tonight? Here on the show, live on a Monday night, and we're back here to do episode 41 of this movie review show. And tonight we are doing a little movie called Transformers Rise of the Beast, and whether it's actually worth the price of admission and worth the price of the trouble it's cost us to get to this point in this right now. But joining us tonight, possibly on the last time on the West Coast, Mr. Rob Model. How you doing today, Rob?
Oh, I'm doing good. So I got a week left here, and looking forward to getting out of here.
I can imagine someone who's been in the West Coast for many, many years. It's probably time to roll on out of here. And joining us somewhere in the distance is our good buddy Rick Aragon. How you doing, Rick?
I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you. I have nothing else to add. Sorry.
For the record, we are live here on Rumble right now. We did have some technical issues over there, but it looks like I think we're back on. So yeah, we are ready to go. Sounds like we're good to go there. So, joining us here for a movie night. We did have a little discussion that I wanted to have. Probably the best time to just go ahead and have it now, since we're going to be talking about this film that I have a lot of opinions about. We'll get to that one later in the film, but next week, I guess this week is technically, we'll talk about next week here on the show. There is a multitude of movies that are coming out now. Half of them are bad, at least more than half of them are bad, but there are a couple of intriguing films here. So I want to have a little bit of discussion on the films that we're going to talk about next week, especially since Rob won't be here. We have the big one, which is the one everyone will be talking about the most, which is The Flash. We've kind of chronicled the Ezra Miller situation here for the last few weeks. By the way, Rick, just because you turn your camera off doesn't mean that we can still hear you eating in the background because your mic is still on. So it's just throwing that out there. But everyone's always talking about the Flash, the whole thing with Ezra Miller. He's been a menace to society for the last year and a half now. They put him in a hole somewhere, and I believe the premiere of that film is supposed to be either tonight or I think tomorrow or something officially. But here's a movie that they've sunk at least $300 million into, and they have no idea if they're going to get their money back. I haven't seen the recent projections, but the projections from a few months ago was not that great for this movie. So I'll start with you, Rob, because you probably end up seeing this on your own time, or maybe you'll just check it out a little bit later. What's kind of your thoughts on where Warner Brothers is in general at the moment? Because it seems like they've pretty much given up on everything that was associated with Zack Snyder over the last couple of years, but they're putting all of their eggs on the James Gunn basket. I'm not sure that's any better of an idea than the Zack Snyder role is right now. And if this movie bombs, you're going to have to ask yourself, is James Gunn even going to have enough juice to get people back interested in these properties in 3-4 years when this whole thing starts rolling? I mean, so what's kind of the deal here?
Yeah. Look, I've liked Zack Snyder's stuff for the most part. I mean, I know most of his movies are flawed and have their issues, but I, for the most part, liked his vision for the DC universe. And I would have been interested in seeing his Flash movie. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure if it's half of a Zack Snyder idea, half of what was left over at DC once he left, and we're throwing Michael Keaton in here, and we're I don't know. And they've put so much money into this. They've invested so much into the production of it. I don't know how they come out with a serviceable product. You know what I mean? I'm sure people go see it, but how good or how bad it is, I guess, just depends on what you're willing to put up with in terms of an audience member. Because I'm sure it's going to be more than I can handle or more than I can put up with. But we've seen people go to the movies this year for all kinds of crap. So who knows? Maybe on a wing and a prayer, it's not a complete disaster, and they're able to save face. But this is kind of the remnants of what they're left with. We'll see what happens with James Gunn going forward.
Yeah,
but I don't think he's the answer. I just think they're hoping he does for them what he did for Marvel with Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a highly profitable franchise. But outside of that, I don't think that those are very memorable movies.
Yeah, I mean, look, to give credit, I guess what credit is due, Guardians of the Galaxy did just pass $800 million, so we'll make a little bit of money here based on what they spent. Not a whole lot, but it was a movie I wasn't expecting them to make it that far to begin with, but apparently it did much better overseas than it did here in the United States, so that was something that we didn't really see coming there. But Rick, let me throw this question over to you real quick with The Flash. Do you think that there's anything that they can possibly do to save DC moving forward? Because I don't know, it feels like people have just quietly given up on this whole thing. And to be fair, it's their own fault. They haven't given anyone a reason to be excited. But I think people are like visibly giving up at this point.
I don't see anything that will make people excited to go see the Flash. Although my friend is oddly enough excited. He does. I don't think he knows anything about Ezra Miller and Ezra Miller's myriad of problems, to put it lightly.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really think anyone's going to get excited. I mean, I guess they had to release it just so that they could have something, but no, I don't really sense a lot of enthusiasm, especially since we know that it's not going to tie into anything that's going to come up later. If they're going to have to rely on Michael Keaton to move this product forward because he's come back as Batman, and then with the wild rumors that George Clooney might pop up, then Christopher Reeve might pop up. If that's what they're relying on, if it opens, I guess if it opens at number one, it'll be good. But I don't expect it to have much holdover. No one is excited. And as for the DCEU, maybe they should just start fresh because they've already lost what? They've lost Cavill. They're about to lose Gadot, the way I understand it.
Yeah, she's probably gone. Rock is gone.
Yeah.
The dude who plays, was it Cyborg? He's been kind of off his rocker for the last couple of years, so he's likely gone. But for some reason they want to keep Ezra Miller, or at least they're leaving the door open for possibly keeping him around. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Well, he could always team up with Zachary Levi.
Mm-hmm.
they could join forces there.
There's another one who's going to be gone soon. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of questions here about what's exactly going to happen with them. But I guess there's some other films to look forward to this week. You have the latest Disney flop, Elemental, which is going to be that animated movie about water and fire together because it's supposed to be some kind of allegory to interracial marriage or gay marriage or something like that. Who cares? It's $200 million that they're going to burn. And probably going to be well more than that after the flops with all the marketing and stuff like that. But I don't think anyone needs to waste their time watching that movie. I'm definitely not going to require anyone to go see that film. So no, just save your money there. The other one is The Blackening, which seems like I said this on the show with Tom Connors last night. I feel like that we're at a point in society right now that Soul Plane came out today. People will try to convince you that it's a good movie because they wouldn't want to seem racist. And then that's pretty much why I feel like watching the trailer for that movie. It's like, if you ever been to like Tubi or like Netflix, and they have like the Black Cinema section of like their portfolio or their catalog. It's like there's only a handful of movies out there you would actually call good. Like if they have like Menace to Society or Boys in the Hood or maybe like School Days, something like that. But all the other quote unquote black films that have come out pretty much post 2000s have just been so terrible. It's like it's almost an embarrassment to the art to even allow these people to go out there and make movies at this point.
The Blackening, it seems to be almost like a scary movie type parody. Where was it? The Wayans brothers were making fun of all of the Scream movies. Mm-hmm. That's the way it plays. The trailer is not very exciting, though. I do want to see if they justify the black man who voted for Trump twice, and see, like, oh wow, so you're obviously going to be the first one killed because you voted for Trump twice. I don't know.
So you're basically just waiting to see if it's going to be as cringeworthy as the trailer suggests it's going to be. Right?
No, I'm not going to rush out to see it. This is not a movie that I would want to see. Maybe if they had actually taken the bull by the horns and decided to parody, the artwork of Jordan Peele, like Get Out and Us and what is it, Nope. If they had decided to spoof him and his films, that might have been something, but I don't think that they will. So
yeah, I think that's conventions. I mean, this whole idea is niche to begin with, but the idea that you would take Jordan Peele's movies and then they're so relatable that everybody would want to go see this movie because they're so familiar with Jordan Peele's movies would be ridiculous. You know what I mean? I think this is more like the whole, the black person's the first person to die off in the horror movie. like kind of old tropes of like horror movies, like in the past. But that's kind of all I got from the trailer was, certain rules in play with, who's going to get killed when, in terms of being in this concocted situation. But it just looks like a terrible movie overall, and I can't imagine anybody that would want to go see this.
But didn't you see the commercials where the audience was reacting? And,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
it's not Paranormal Activity came out. When did that movie come out? 2007, something like that.
Gotta be.
I have no idea.
I think like 2012, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure it was like something newer in between.
Yeah, I never saw it, so I don't remember like what the time frame was, but I remember that was a big marketing push for that one, was showing how freaked out audiences were. But to a comedy, that seems like the wrong PR focus for this movie.
Yeah. And then you haven't really heard anything else outside of that. Like I said, people they're gonna walk around eggshells to not call this movie the abomination that it probably is. And I feel like I have to go see it just for the reasons. But yeah, that's definitely not one that I am looking forward to. Now, a couple of other movies that we have coming out this weekend is I think it's gonna be limited for most people. So I'm not sure if either one of you guys are gonna have access to this one. But Asteroid City, which is the latest Wes Anderson film. Now, maybe it's just me, and maybe we're just a film snob, but I feel like all of Wes Anderson's movies are just very pretentious and in its nature, and it really goes to show with like his core fan base, the ones that pretend like these are like the greatest pieces of cinema that they've ever seen in their entire life because it's pretentious. And it almost have that style, sort of like a lot of like A24 movies, where people try to pretend like they're better than they actually are because they make it seem sophisticated as a result. But this one has a big cast of people attached to it, like Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, like all the normal people you would think to be associated with him. Margot Robbie, which I don't know if she wants to be associated with that one with her box office record. But Rob, I see you got into a little argument this week regarding this movie. Which kind of your thoughts on the film and just Wes Anderson in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, I grew up really liking Wes Anderson as a teenager. I thought he was very creative, very inventive. Certainly, as I have appreciated cinema more, the form and the sort of cinematic vision he has is symmetrical and beautifully stated. But over the last, half a dozen movies, you get really tired of seeing the same kind of cutesy, almost twee, overly precious kind of aesthetic. And his characters aren't very interesting. They're not dynamic. They're almost like on some kind of drug, some kind of pharmacological drug that's for anxiety or something. So I have a hard time sort of getting into his movies or finding a whole lot about them that are interesting. They really do come off like somebody who spent his life in prep school and like away from the general population and, kind of cut off from, I don't know if it's emotion or what it is, but so many of his movies come off as incredibly cold. But it's people have liked him. His movies have made money. The Grand Budapest Hotel, which came out, I think, close to a decade ago, was a huge box office haul for him. So he's been really successful. His casts really like him. I get it, but I just get sick of his output and his sort of artistic, his artistic vision, because it's so kind of the same thing so consistently. But it's fine. I just find the guy really annoying.
There is a certain style that he sticks with, and it's a lot of bright colors, always centering his characters in the middle of the frame, always moving his camera, usually from left to right. So it's very self-conscious. It's very, self-consciously artsy and self-aware. I would say that I like some of his movies. I liked Grand Budapest Hotel. I loved Moonrise Kingdom. Some of his movies I've detested. Was it the Darjeeling Limited? I absolutely hated that. I was not overwhelmed with his first film, Bottle Rocket, which I think is the only one where he actually manages to not have everyone in the center of the frame and kind of does not move it. But what can I say? It is kind of artistic. I know that a lot of his films have that Criterion release. He almost seems to have an exclusive contract with them. Oh, that's right. Royal Tenenbaums. I wasn't particularly impressed with that one either. I have a feeling that the audience for Asteroid City will not be the same audience for The Blackening. I don't know why. I don't think that there'll be any cross referencing between those two audiences. That's counter programming if ever there was one. I don't know if it'll be playing here. I'm sure it will eventually, but his aesthetic is a little too. Rob is right. Twee, a little too precious for many people. But there are people who love that kind of visual style. So we'll just wait and see. I don't hate the trailer, but I get a little anxious when something's very self consciously artsy.
Yeah, and like I said, I think this is one that if it's in my area, I'll check out too. Only because I mean, look, with the other three options that we have, it's probably one of the few movies that I at least have some kind of angle or interest in seeing this week because there isn't a whole lot to go off of. And knowing Wes Anderson's history, it's like maybe I'll get something out of here. So I'll probably throw that one on the watch. But the one movie that I found out the entire weekend that I'm actually interested in seeing is a film called Extraction 2 with I know Rick's favorite person in the world, Chris Hemsworth. Now, this is a movie that comes out on Netflix, I think, on Friday. Back during the pandemic, 3 years ago, actually. This is one of a few films that came out that I actually really liked because, I mean, at the time, nothing was coming out. Everything was being put on streaming service. But to me, I looked at it as this is what Chris Hemsworth should have been this entire time. Like he's kind of made his bones just being Thor for like the last 10, 11 years now. And then everything he's done outside of that has just been like these really bad comedy roles or just movies that, it's not that he's just a bad actor. It's just that the content that he's getting, like they're giving him nothing to work with. They're putting him in like Ghostbusters, Men in Black, and like all these other like really trashy like franchises. So when I saw this film and it's actually pretty solid, I was like, okay, yeah, I can buy Chris Hemsworth as an action star if he does more stuff like this. And it looks like they put a little bit more of the budget into this film. I know he's a producer of the movie, so he's putting a little bit more work into it. So this could be the best movie of the weekend. No, it's not saying much given the movies we talked about here, but there's a lot to look forward to here. Rick, what's kind of your thoughts on Extraction 2 coming out this week?
Well, I never saw Extraction, so that's going to be difficult for me to see. Second,
well, we got time.
He can't act. He's a behemoth man, but he can't act.
Well,
he
I'll
couldn't
say
sell.
this. He's the best actor in his family because I've seen Liam Hemsworth act, and holy shit, that guy is terrible. So,
what was that one?
Paranoia.
Yes,
with Harrison Ford.
Yes, I found that hilarious. Actually, bless his heart. But yeah, Liam. Oh no, there was that one with Miley Cyrus. He also did that one.
Yeah, he used to date Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, it was a Nicholas. The last song I think it was called. It was Nicholas Sparks adaptation. And look, he's a beautiful looking man, but he can't act. His brother is just a bigger man, but he can't act either. I will concede he's probably the best. Although I've not seen Luke. Was it Luke Hemsworth? I've not seen his brother, who I think has decided to just stay in Australia. Well, look, I don't think he can even be an action star. He couldn't sell Black Hat, could he? Was that him? I think he was in.
Yeah, I never watched it.
Yeah, that one was definitely not worthy at all. But like I said, up to this point, he hasn't. Like I said, outside of, I mean, even Thor. I mean, you gotta be honest. Like that's his big role. But I mean, the Thor movies aren't that good. Like I think the third one's like the best by default because of how bad all the other ones are. But I mean, even then, it's like he hasn't been in a film that I truly really liked up until I saw him in Extraction 2 because it was so completely different than what we've been used to seeing him in up to this point. So I mean, I'm actually hoping that it is a good film.
But you look at his film work. Was he able to sell tickets to go see the Ghostbusters where he was playing the himbo? And he was the, I guess, comic relief. This is going to be the new Chris Hemsworth. We're going to see him as a comedy star. And that didn't go over well.
Yeah.
Men in Black 2 is supposed to be comedy, action, sci-fi with Men in Black International. That didn't go well. He's one of those people that the studios keep promoting. as a great. Oh, I never saw.
Yeah,
Was
I
it
actually like
Batman
that
Royale?
movie. I don't know that it totally works, but he is pretty
Yeah.
good as this cult leader in that movie. But he's not in it. He's that much. He's in like the last
Yeah.
half hour. So
Oh wow.
Yeah, I was kind of 50-50 on it. I mean, there was things that I did like about it. It was just some things I didn't like either. But yeah, I mean, that was a good example of something that he's done that was pretty positive. And I think the other movie that we saw him in, which was pretty good too, we reviewed last year, Spiderhead, the one with Miles
Spider-Man.
Teller. He did a pretty good job in that one too. So
I wasn't convinced. I didn't think him dancing to more than this, doing a little ballet number to it, was that impressive, and I think he was trying too hard. Uh, I'm not convinced that he's a star. I'm not convinced he's an action star. He's certainly not an actor. The best he could do is be an action star, but it might be the best. It might be the best movie if you're just getting kind of good action. I have no real view on what is one, Extraction 2 or whatever it's
yeah,
called. Yeah, but I don't. Well, none of these films seem particularly interesting. Maybe Asteroid City, but sometimes Wes Anderson can be insufferable in his
oh, his
cinematic
last
style.
one, The French Dispatch. Did you guys see that? Holy
No,
shit, that was
no,
insufferable. Oh
no.
my god, just painstaking, like stilted art object images. And I'm like, look, I get it. I appreciate symmetry and or the composition of the shot, but you're just jerking off for yourself and for your cast. Please stop.
solid enough. Well, next week, Rick, I can go ahead and just let you know right now, since Rob won't be here, that you'll have two film assignments next week. You'll have the pleasure of watching both Extraction 2 and Android City.
Wait, how can I wait a minute? I'm not even sure that Asteroid City is going to play in El Paso.
Oh, okay. Then, well, let me scratch that. You can go watch The Flash and The Blackening then.
Alrighty.
You
Uh,
see how
I,
I
I,
set you up to take the bad movies?
I already had. Well, like I said, a friend of mine was eager to watch The Flash, so I already got my
Mhm,
tickets for that. Now I just need to go get a ticket for The Blackening
mhm.
and immerse myself. Although I don't know, maybe I should wait until Juneteenth to see this movie to celebrate the
God.
full African American experience.
I keep forgetting Juneteenth is actually a thing. That's how big of a clown society we've become over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, but they will definitely give some time for Asteroid City and Extraction 2. I guess I'll take those assignments this week. So just in case you know exactly what you're going to watch this week. So it should be a fun week for you, El Paso.
All right, well, I will get the Blackening. I'm sure it'll be playing here.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's not a great week, people. We're really stretching for quality films right now. But since we're here, let's give a quick little shout out to our guys in the chat right now. Neo joining us here, saying hey to everybody here. Let's transform. We're about to get into it here in just a second. The only good Transformers movie was the '86 animated film, and even Transformers fan thinks that Rise of the Beast is either meh or no good. We'll talk about it. Duke Nukem is joining us. Black Cinema is cringe. I happen to agree. Yeah, so we got him. We got Doba Fett who's joining us here tonight as well. Is that Chris Hemsworth's box office point when he's not Thor? I mean, if you look at the last film, he wasn't exactly box office success either. So it depends on how you look at it. But let's go ahead and get started with our feature film of the night, which is Transformers: Rise of the Beast. So before I say absolutely anything about this film, I need to just ask Rick and Rob this question right out of the gate. Has there been a single good Transformers movie up to this point? I'll start with
No.
Rob.
I saw the first Transformers movie in theaters when I was 18.
Mhm.
Even then, I knew it was a piece of crap. So, no, I don't think any of these movies are good. I think that if you just want mindless, sort of big robot action, maybe this. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Perhaps Revenge of the Fallen is your bag, but just when
Oh, that's
Optimus
sad.
Prime does the big sword thing with Megatron
That's
and
sad.
that whole fight, maybe that's the only thing I can possibly think in terms of recommendation to anybody.
Yeah,
I can say that Revenge of the Fallen was the last film that I saw in the Transformers world. I know someone who saw it with his wife and baby 3 times that opening weekend. I went with them the third time, and they told me that the second time they saw it in 3D. So I went to see it for the first time, and I sat there and I thought, how could you guys have sat through it willingly more than once? But the fact that you saw it three times and the second in 3D, my God, that was terrible. So if that's the best of the ones that you can recommend, Roberto, you know, just don't drive through El Paso because I'll probably smack you upside the head for doing that. No, the only two movies that I've seen, Transformers and Revenge of the Fallen, they've both been bad. So I can't offer if any others have been better.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so let's kind of rewind how we got to this point here. And with this, I don't even know if this is the sixth or seventh movie, or depending on if you count the spin-offs. But here's how we got here. In 2007, Steven Spielberg decided that he was going to make Shia LaBeouf a mega movie star, right? So he put him in the Transformers franchise. It's a hit. Some people like it. Some people still say it's a good movie to this day. Whatever. It was him, Michael Bay, Megan Fox before she became like a crazy witch lady, which we'll talk about tomorrow night on the Barroom podcast. And then that's essentially how we set that whole thing up. A couple years later, we got the second movie, Transformers 2. It's the one that everyone universally hates. Nobody likes that movie. People were saying that the robots were racist and that it was really just no point. Even Michael Bay, I think, threw the film under the bus a couple years after it released. So it was just not a good movie all around. A couple years after that, Megan Fox said something about calling Michael Bay Hitler. And then, of course, Steven Spielberg got upset about this. And then next thing you know, she was out of the franchise. They brought in Jason Statham's girlfriend for a movie, and then they just ended it. It's like, okay, well, Shia LaBeouf is getting beat up at bars now. It's like, this franchise is over. So they decided a few years later, hey, you know what? Let's keep this thing going, but let's put Mark Wahlberg as the new protagonist for the film. And the first one that he did, it was so bad. I'm not even making this up. I got 2 hours into that film. And then when I looked and see there were still 30 minutes left in the movie, I stopped and I never went back to watch that movie again. And I literally said, there's still 30 minutes left. And I stopped. Like, I literally walked away and I was like, I can't do this. I'm done. Then a couple years after that, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to do a non-review of this movie. So I just wrote down a bunch of random thoughts that were in my head. And all I could say is that British Megan Fox is at least better looking than American Megan Fox. But outside of that, the movie sucked ass. And then we got Bumblebee a couple years after that. And people pretending like Bumblebee was great. And it's like, it really wasn't. The only reason why people thought it was good because of the 5 crappier movies that came out before then. Like, it was good by comparison, but it wasn't exactly a good movie when you look at it from that perspective. And then somehow we're here for another one. And this is yet another reboot of the franchise, even though they're just going back to the original timeline. So they're literally doing the X-Men thing of, hey, let's go back to the 70s and then the 80s and then the 90s. So we already did the 80s Transformers movie. So now we're in the 1990s. And they decided, hey, what's going to make this franchise successful? What's going to revive this franchise? Diversity and inclusion. So let's do a Transformers movie set in Brooklyn, New York, in the mid 1990s, so that we can play a bunch of hip hop and R&B songs from that time period and focus on a Puerto Rican protagonist and a black girl who is supposed to be like some kind of museum expert, even though nobody takes her seriously. Because I mean, look at her. Why would you take her seriously? And that's how we got here. This is how we've gotten to this stage of Transformers after all of these years. So let me just go ahead and I'll shoot this one up to Rob first. It seems like there hasn't been a single movie in this franchise that has gotten the human element of the story right. It's like, it's a Transformers movie. People want to see a bunch of robots. I don't know why they can't just make a film where Optimus Prime is the protagonist and things happen around him. It's like, no, the audience can't identify with robots. We have to have some kind of human element. So we get this crap here again. Why can't they get this right after almost 16 years?
Yeah, I don't know. Because you think that the model for something like this, even if it's an elevated version of it, is Godzilla. You know, you don't. I mean, yeah, the humans are there and they're impacted by the creatures, but the main focus is on like these creatures destroying a city and beating each other up. So like maybe make that be the focus, or at least, you know, make it the centerpiece. I don't know. Like I do not know how to make a Transformers movie good. Like, certainly I'm don't come to me and ask me, because I think it's a dumb idea to start with. But yeah, I grew up with Beast Wars, You know, I didn't. I was a little too young for Transformers. That was more my brother's thing in the '80s. But I love Beast Wars, and going back, it's dated poorly. I watched that computer generated like cartoon. Anyway, so I was at least open to where this movie went or where it wanted to go. I just think it's a weird decision to have Transformers and like what are they called, Maximals, together, because they're supposed to be existing at different times and all that shit. So like, you know, Optimus Prime is a descendant of Optimus Primal, that kind of shit. So like even the setup for the story didn't make sense. It didn't seem like people that were even fans of the show. It was like something you know, that was created in a studio executive boardroom, not by a bunch of, you know, screenwriters.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about the screenwriters here in a second. But Rick, what is your thoughts on their other failure to make an interesting human character, and why they even find the need to focus on human character in this film to begin with?
All I kept thinking while watching this particular movie is why did it have to be set on Earth? Why couldn't it be set on another planet altogether? You could even have human-like beings on this other planet and just go from there. We don't care because, yeah, you're just gonna go from Brooklyn to deepest, darkest Peru. Maybe if they had, no, Paddington Bear pop up, that might have made it more interesting. Or maybe just set it in the past, where you would have had the Inca deal with the Transformers. That would have been an interesting twist. But no, you're going to have these people, and the characters, the human characters, were boring. They weren't interesting at all. With all their dilemma, I timed it. I was literally timing it. It was a good 20 minutes, I think, before we even got the first Transformers. I mean, we got to see the first ones there. Outside of the opening scene where you had Michelle Yeoh pop up and going, "Oh, that's Michelle Yeoh!" Right
Right.
away, I already knew who it was. And Robo Kong, that's what I kept calling him. Because I had no idea who that creature was. And Galactus, Metal Galactus out there.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my god, I'm already bored.
Planet eating robots.
Yeah, I'm already bored. Why they can't get any human characters? Because it requires an actual vested interest. When you try to make the apparent end of one Transformer a moving moment that the human character is supposed to cry, uh, why bother? Honestly, why bother having these boring humans? I thought about it. There's no way. Not the best actor could not have solved this because there's nothing there. They're not interested in the human characters. They're there, I guess, just to have human characters and to match them up in size to the Transformers, but they're not that interesting. And the Transformers aren't that interesting either, to be perfectly honest.
Well, and I feel bad that they feel the need to put the like diversity and inclusion leads in there, because it's like it's like there's no characters there. They're just sort of like, hey, we're just gonna throw you in here because the human characters don't matter anyway. So it's like, so it's like they want to have it both ways. They want to say, hey, look, we care about diversity and inclusion, but we also didn't try in making these characters matter either. So it just is like, why would you attempt that at all if that's going to be the case?
Yeah. Well, I gave them at least a little credit in that the black female here works at a museum. I mean, it's not a stereotypical role. I wish they had not made her an intern, where she's just referred to as intern. I wish she had actually like been already an established professional. That would have been an interesting twist. It had actual true diversity and inclusion, if that's what you want, by having a more positive figure. But no, you have to go intern, and she's rushing with her coffees and all this. I'm going, oh boy. And we haven't even gotten to any of the alleged story yet. So,
well, let's go ahead and kind of start off with where this film leads us into. So because this is a film about a black and brown protagonist, it has to be about struggle, right? Because you can't just tell a normal story. You have to tell all of this emotional, manipulated story about how the brown man is just being held down, how he can't catch a break, blah, blah, blah. So we have this guy, I don't even remember his name, Anthony Ramos is playing Noah Diaz, who Reminds me very much of who's the annoying Puerto Rican dude who's in all the movie, John Leguizamo. He reminded me of him very, very quickly, and not in a good way.
Wasn't he in the Heights? Wasn't this
Yeah.
guy in the Heights? Okay.
Yeah, he was Uznavi.
Uznavi. The Washington Heights. I mean that
Washington.
yeah.
I hated that.
But
I
him
hated
and that girl from Scream 6. I don't know her name, but yeah.
No. And that's the one thing I kept saying to everyone, including my friend Gabe and other people who liked In the Heights. If they speak English flawlessly, why do they say Washington Heights? There's no reason for that.
That's because how else you going to know they're Puerto Rican?
That just drove me insane. Though tomorrow, if Cassie could start saying Washington Heights, so she could embrace her heritage, I'd appreciate that.
But obviously, the story here is that this guy supposedly served his country. Okay, sure. And then the next thing you know, he's out on the street because he's had some issues in the past, and he has a brother who's sick with some made up disease. His mother is a single working mom, and all he needs is a chance. All he needs is a break, but he can't catch a break because it's just impossible to get a job in the real world. The guy gets some guy cancels an interview with him, but then doesn't tell him that the interview is canceled, which just seems kind of weird and out of practice. I mean, you at least figure that you say that, hey, look, we're canceling the interview. Just have the guy show up. It's like, yeah, we don't want to talk to people like you. It's like, what do you mean people like me? It's like, that's a very odd way of staging. And then, of course, that leads to absolutely nothing because it doesn't even come up again towards the early part of the film. But it's done like that to show that, hey, this guy needs money fast and he's getting desperate. So what does he decide to do? Break into a hotel and steal a car. That's a good way to get fast cash. And, of course, the one car he decides to steal just happens to be a Transformer that's been lying in wait there for no real particular reason. Wasn't explained why the car was there. It was just, he was just hanging out there. And they just turns out to be the new BFFs. And, of course, the car is played by no other than Pete Davidson. So before we go any further, we need to talk about this Pete Davidson problem. It feels like every single week we do this show that Pete Davidson has been snuck into a movie that we're doing. He was in Guardians. He was in Fast. He was in this movie. I know there has to be like another one that I forgot somewhere within the course of the last few weeks that we reviewed.
He wasn't in Little Mermaid?
Not that I can recall, but yeah, so he's literally just in absolutely everything. And of course, they make him kind of the main, almost the protagonist of this film, because this film really doesn't focus much on Optimus Prime. It doesn't really focus much on Bumblebee, the characters that the audience is already used to. It's like, no, we're going to set anew by focusing on this Puerto Rican and his Pete Davidson card throughout the entire thing. And I'm just thinking to myself, I'm so infuriated at this point with the setup. Only a few minutes in, it's like, what is it with Hollywood's obsession with Pete Davidson at this point?
And usually to have these kind of cameos, you have to have, and I mean, it's not just a cameo. I think he's this character throughout, but it's been more of these minor roles where he pops up. Usually you earn that kind of cameo status where it's a notable thing that you're showing up in a movie, hopefully in an entertaining way. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, that whole movie was just kind of people popping up as funny cameos. But when it's so frequent and it's so it lacks an entertaining quality or makes the movie better, it doesn't do anything, didn't do any of those things. It just becomes an irritating inclusion by each of the productions. So I don't get it personally. I think it shows a lack of ideas at the center of your movie, which we could say about each and every one of those movies. They weren't very good in the first place. So maybe if Pete Davidson's in your movie, that says more about your lack of ideas and your lack of sort of storytelling vision. But the fact that he was in this kind of annoyed me, but I at a certain point just tuned it out, as I have to if he's going to be in the movie I'm watching.
Yeah. Well, I will say this just real quick before I let Rick go. I told you guys, I think it was like last week, that Joyride is probably my number one worst film of the year, even though I haven't seen it yet. I'm keeping it as a placeholder. There's another movie coming out that I have to put on the placeholder as even number one and number two. It's called Dumb Money, and it comes out in October. And it's a movie that's starring both Pete Davidson and Seth Rogen. So two of my least favorite people in the entire whole wide world are in a movie together that's coming out later this year.
Strays movie, I think it's animated with Will Ferrell as a dog. That looks fucking awful. So that one, but yeah, Joyride, I had to watch an ad for it like every time my movie on Tubi this weekend went to break. It looks god awful. I had to mute the TV because it was like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on this. I mean, first I congratulate Pete Davidson's agent for getting him into all of these movies, and obviously he's very popular. I think he's more popular because of the tabloid stories of his endless sexual escapades with all of these women, and you wonder, I'm just at a loss to understand what exactly is the draw, for this man. Is it catnip for all the women out there? But who am I to deny his generation's James Stewart? Really, who am I to deny him this ability to just pop into all of these movies and make a career? Why he has a career, we don't know. It's like that old line from that Simpson song where they're all like the Stonecutters. Who
Yeah.
made Steve Gutenberg a star?
We do.
Yeah, exactly. So he's probably involved in some sort of Freemason-like group that that keeps plugging him in. But no, nobody went to see this movie because they heard Pete Davidson voiced Mirage,
Mirage.
Mirage, one of these robots. They went because they thought they know the Transformers. They didn't go for him. Same way they didn't go to Fast X because he appears in it. Or what was that other Guardians of the Galaxy? They didn't go to see him. He's in these movies, but he's not the draw. He's never been the draw, and he will never be the draw for a film. No matter, I mean, King of Staten Island, was he the draw then? He was the central character. He was the main lead, and I don't think that did very well. So they just plug him in some sort of deranged effort to appeal to the youth. Maybe, I don't know. I can't explain it.
I just don't get it. Like there's like I think Rob was even saying this earlier. Like it just feels like a psyop at this point. Like they're just like screwing with us intentionally. At this point with him, like trying to see like how we were going to react and when's like our breaking point with Pete Davidson.
I'll be honest, okay? I didn't mind Pete Davidson when he was like on SNL and he was doing the Comedy Central roasts because it was like, okay, he fits there, he makes sense, like whatever. His dad died in 9/11 fighting like as a firefighter. Like that's cool, like whatever, as a background thing. Since then, he's just become an insufferable, like everything he shows up in is terrible, and it's just like, I mean, what was it, the worst movie of last year? Wasn't he in that for you? Bodies.
Bodies.
Yeah, that's it.
So
That's
it's like nothing he does is good. Movies, TV. He's just kind of an annoying presence.
Yeah. And to be fair, he wasn't even the worst part of that movie. He just happened to be in the movie that absolutely sucked. So, but yeah, he's in this one, so we got to deal with him. But then on the flip side of this movie, you have what's this girl's name? I think it was like Dominique something. Now Dominique Fishback, who I believe was in another film that I reviewed not too long ago that wasn't very good. She doesn't come off as a very say seasoned actress. It looks like she's only been around for like a short period of time.
Yeah, she's in this Amazon series called Swarm that got a lot of play on Twitter, especially because there's a pretty graphic sex scene in it of her just like watching two people go at it. And it's just like, okay, I mean, I never watched it, but that's literally the only thing I know her from. So it's like, I don't know who this person is, and there's not much of a character here.
I know where I remember her from. It was a movie called, during the pandemic time called Project Power with Jamie Foxx and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. That those two were in. It was a Netflix movie. It was one of those, like I said, where you get a couple of like notable stars in the film, and then you try to give someone who's up and coming kind of a lead role, and thinking that, well, if Jamie Foxx is a star, then we'll make her a star by putting her with Jamie Foxx. It's like, no. That's not how it works. But hey, here we are a couple years later, and they gave her a feature spot on the Transformers movie. So hey, maybe everyone's getting the Roman Reigns push this.
I do remember her. She was in Judas and the Black Messiah, where she played the wife.
Oh, the wife. Yeah,
Fred.
That's right.
Was it Fred Hampton? Was that his
name?
Yeah, Fred Hampton.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was not bad in that, though. To be fair. It wasn't a large role, but I thought she was good in that. Everything else, I mean, this is not going to help her career. But then again, there was no character to play here. I don't think you.
But then again, you're still speaking as if actual like performances on screen is what helps your career at this point. It's like that Hollywood died a couple of decades ago. I don't know what to tell you at this point.
Well, I still apparently remember when Betty Davis made her film debut. So there you
Pretty sure
go.
you do. But yeah, so her old story arc is that this is the same story with every single Transformers movie. Every single Transformer movie is exactly the same. They have to find some kind of mythical MacGuffin device of the week to get that out of the hands of the Decepticons so that the world doesn't end, right? Every single Transformers movie has had the exact same plot. It's had a human story that nobody really cares about. It has no real importance to the overall plot of the film whatsoever. And then the Autobots have to team up to get the new BS MacGuffin of the week out of the hands of the evil guys so that the world doesn't collapse upon itself. And once again, we have some key that opens the portal to this planet-eating giant, this giant robot that eats planets, and we have to stop him from opening up the world. He's going to destroy Earth. And then Optimus Prime decides, well, hey, this key can also lead us back to our world because it's still about trying to get back home after all of these movies. And since this is a prequel, we still have to keep that storyline alive as well. So that's kind of the setup here with the human characters of Dominique's character, then the Puerto Rican guy, and then everything else here is so boring and so flat. I had a hard time even critiquing it because it was just like nothing's happening at all. There's nothing even worth complaining about. It just felt bland and soulless to me. Is this the same way you guys felt?
Yeah, it was pretty much a blur, and I also found that they didn't even have a notable villain. And to be to be fair, I don't know much about Transformers, so if this is a big villain dude or whatever, then fine, I'm ignorant. But I was just, you're not gonna even have Megatron in here. You're not even gonna have, So I thought for, again, being like a Beast Wars Transformers movie, it kind of was lackluster. I remember that one scene that got shown on social media, from the trailer, I think, that was one continuous long shot, and people were like, they didn't cut once, and it's like, yeah, because it's all digital, it's all CGI crap, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's fine. I didn't expect much, going in, but yeah, it's kind of airless crap across the screen. Just they're going through the motions. It's mostly CGI and green screen, and it's not very good at that. So, I definitely felt the same way.
Well, I think, Rob, you're selling the film short. I'm sure they studied Touch of Evil to copy that, which I don't even remember. Let me be blunt. I'm pretty sure I nodded off at least once in this movie because.
Oh no, I did too. I certainly did too.
Yeah, because I don't remember how they got the second key or the second half of the magical key. I was like, oh, okay, they're in Peru and they got the key somehow. I don't remember how they got the key. No, yeah, this movie was remarkably boring for being loud and big and overwhelming with all these gigantic monsters. It was remarkably boring, and as I watched it, I thought, what exactly? Why does Michelle Yeoh, that hawk bird thing, why does it suddenly go evil? I don't remember how they control her, and I kept thinking that's like a metal Galactus. That's how I referred to it. I didn't even know what it was called. There's yeah, this was a remarkably boring movie. It's not that it's so much bad as it is boring. I'm sure I nodded off. The people behind me, though, they were really excited because, especially in the climactic battle, they were like, ooh, 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 ooh. So they were really into it. And what can I say? I mean, they actually enjoyed it.
Look, and I know it's literally like a kid's cartoon from the
From
80s
the
or whatever.
80s.
But some of the dialogue from the good guys and the bad guys back and forth was just so cringeworthy. It was like, I know that these are sort of obvious examples of good and evil, but holy shit, can we please okay, what about the screenwriters? Okay, I need to hear this. How many screenwriters were in charge of this piece of crap?
Yeah, so here's the thing: the draw of this movie for a lot of people, because there were people who I guess were excited about this, because Rob mentioned it before. He watched Beast Wars back in the '90s. I watched it back in the '90s, but I didn't care nothing to get excited about this film. But everyone wanted to see the Beast robots. That was kind of like the whole thing. Now we've teased these robots for quite some time. I think it was like 2 movies ago. We had the Dinobots at some point. So everyone want to see, oh, it's going to be just like Beast Wars. I can't wait to see it. If that's the reason why you're going to go watch this movie, just stay home.
Yeah.
Just stay home. I mean, they don't even show up to like legitimately maybe about an hour to like an hour, 30 minutes into the film. And then when they're introduced, their purpose in the plot is so thin. In all honesty, this is the kind of the problem with the movie. If you remove the Dinobots entirely out of this film, it changes nothing. If you remove Optimus Prime and the Autobots out of this film, it changes absolutely nothing. Like, you have 2 groups, 2 hero groups of robots after the same thing, and they're trying to eat up screen time together, but neither one of them has any real impact in the film at all.
Well, it's weird because like it's the plot point where Anthony Ramos's character and Optimus Prime have to sort of see eye to eye, because you know, and kind of work together, because they're kind of like working again. It's just some really shoddy plot mechanics here that just like, you don't have a story to tell, and you have to create conflict out of thin air. And you know, like you said, talking about the MacGuffin, you know, trying to piece it all together, it's just like, we get it, we know what this is. It's not well made, and it's kind of a waste of time.
Well, I would argue that you could eliminate the little brother, and you would certainly not have much of an impact. I guess he was there to tug at your heartstrings. Although the little boy who played the younger brother, I think he would have been better as Dominic Toretto's son in Fast 10, because he looks closer to what what Vin Diesel looks like than the kid that they got. Nothing against that kid, but
the one who was much blacker than him to begin with.
Yes, the thing is that whole thing about him not being able to go see the doctor, and he had some sort of, it sounded like sickle cell disease, which is predominantly African American disease. That took up a good 20 minutes, and so we could have just gotten
and it played no part in the story whatsoever. It was just the mentioning. I guess my thought is maybe they're just trying to get the disability checkbox in, because that's something that they've been talking about for a while. It's like, hey, we need more people with disabilities on screen, so we need to show that this kid has sickle cell anemia. Does it come to the story whatsoever? Like, does it play a role later on? Nope.
But then what's his face?
He could have
Anthony
been written out completely.
But then Anthony Ramos's character gets in that dumb Gundam style suit, so he can fight too. I mean, it's just like, I can't. And then obviously the sort of tie-in at the very end, to a different franchise is just like, okay, we can't even do one thing right here. We're just throwing shit at the wall.
This is the thing, not being well versed in Transformer lore, I was unaware that humans could become tiny versions of Transformers.
Well, I mean, there was in the second movie. I want to say it was the second movie. Wasn't there like a woman who turned into a Decepticon, or like a Decepticon that turned into a woman at some point?
I don't know. Is that like when in Superman 3, when the woman got trapped by the machine and just became a robot that started like attacking people?
Are you serious? Yeah. Because I have to watch that now.
No, I don't remember. I blanked out in Revenge of the Fallen. I only have memories of going into the theater. I don't remember anything else in the movie except that I hated
talking about Superman 3.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That is that's remember when they build the machine, and the woman, the sister, the kind of uptight.
I never saw past Superman 2, so no, I don't remember.
Oh, okay. Well, you need to see that, because she does turn into like a robot and starts attacking, and it does kind of freak people out if you're a young child. Are
you snitching on yourself right now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, there were things called VHS back in my day. So
okay.
There. And my mom was a big Richard Pryor fan, so there's that. All I could tell you is that there's nothing here. You're just loud and annoying, and I maybe we'll discuss this a little later, But when a character apparently dies, first I thought of your thing of that nobody dies in the Fast films, the Fast and
Yeah.
Furious films. I was like, no, no, I'm kind of waiting for some sort of resurrection, which apparently they stole from Search for Spock. They actually stole that
Here's
whole thing from Search for Spock.
here's the other dumb part. Like, it's the dumbest thing in the world to kill off a well-established character in a prequel movie because the audience already knows that, okay, he's not actually dead. Because if he was dead, he wouldn't have been in all the other movies that came after this. So why would you even have the tease that you're going to kill Bumblebee about 30 minutes into the film? Because everyone knows, I mean, they're clearly going to bring him back. So what's even the point of teasing that?
Because he's one of the more popular ones and he had his own spin-off. Moreover, I kept thinking, yeah, this guy, this robot uh, thing is going to survive. But I guess they did it so that you could get the feels and you could feel sad and, oh, how are they going to bring him back? And they brought him back. You know, when I was watching it, I was literally waiting for that particular song to pop out. I knew that song was going to pop out. Hey, give them credit. They didn't throw in any Beastie Boys here.
This
But
time.
yeah,
No,
but
instead we got a bunch of like DMX and then there was some other. I guess we could talk about kind of the soundtrack here because I guess they thought that by having a black and brown lead that there's going to be more black and brown people in the audience for this movie. So almost the soundtrack, or at least the score of this film, is almost exclusively hip hop from like 1994, and a lot of it did not play well for the scenes at all, especially like the ending where you have like the big like climactic battle, and they're playing like some really weird like hip hop song that was in there. It's like I who made this decision here? What did you guys think about the music selection here?
I honestly don't remember it at all. But I completely agree with you. I mean, here's the thing, that final scene was such a shit show that you could probably pick out anything and probably, be pretty accurate in criticizing it in terms of execution. So the soundtrack, that's just another thing. And, that's one of those things that it's like you have the money to spend on getting a soundtrack right, and then that's what you come out with. It's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of just like, why even try if that's what you're going to come out with?
You're assuming they tried.
Yeah, exactly.
But my thing is that did they? I mean, like I was telling, yeah, no. But the thing that I was literally waiting for is for Bumblebee to come back and just say, don't call it a comeback. I was like, I was waiting for it, and I knew that's what they were going to pick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yes, all the audiences, the black and brown audiences, yes, they're all going to they're still into LL Cool J, who he's still stuck in like DSI or CSS or
Listen,
NCIS.
LL Cool
whatever.
J, the height of his like cultural cachet was 1999 when he was in Any Given Sunday and Deep Blue Sea. So yeah, I just wanted to throw that in there.
Yeah, he's basically been like what on that NCIS show ever since.
Yep.
Yeah.
But what?
When he received like a Presidential Medal of Freedom or Kennedy Center honor or something like that, I was going, why? What contributions have done? What contributions does he have to the general artistic world? I'm puzzled. Hey, I like Mama Stalk You Out. I like that song, and I also like I Need Love. I like that song too. When I feel like in my sad moments.
How about Around the Way, Girl? You don't like that song?
Look, I can't say that I was impressed with the soundtrack.
I mean, there was nothing to be
impressed
about. This whole thing is
doing it well.
Yeah, this whole thing is basically like plucking away all the member berries of, hey, you guys are in your 40s and 50s now. Remember when this character was super big back in the day? Like, it felt like a movie that was aimed at people who were in their 50s, who were old enough to remember when Transformers was big and in the 1980s, when it was trying to gear towards like a younger audience who have really no connection to that old school franchise that those people had in the first place. So it's kind of one of these movies where it's like, who is this even aimed at? Because I don't know. I mean, is it just aimed at people like, hey, I just want a dumb big robot movie for 2 hours? Like, is that the demographic that you're looking at here?
Although somebody pointed out that the song that she sings to calm herself down, what is it, Waterfalls? I think
Yeah,
somebody pointed out that that song didn't come out until 1995.
there's a lot of continuity errors with this film as far as the songs they choose to pick here. It's so dumb.
But hey, at least we didn't hear. We should have heard "No Sleep Till Brooklyn" at least for this one. Although Bronx, Brooklyn, like I know the difference.
Well,
let me. Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead, Rob. Go ahead.
Oh,
No,
okay.
go
I was
ahead.
just going to say with film
No,
production.
go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, you should be on the same page. Okay. This feels like every section of the production was on a completely different page. So the cinematographer is not communicating with the director, not communicating with the art department, production designer, etc. Where it's like you have all these disparate moving parts that don't go together, and you're just like, hey, it appeals to 50-year-old people, 50-year-old hip hop fans and Transformer fans, and kids with the stupid comedy, like the MCU comedy like dialogue. It's just awful execution on every level because these things don't go together.
Oh, and Rob, I know you had asked, and I don't think we ever gave you the answer. It has 5 credited screenwriters.
Well, that was
5
another thing.
people. 5 people came up with this.
That was another thing I was going to mention, but I was actually going to talk about the director first, because this director, Stephen Capel Jr., who only film credits on here beforehand was a film called The Land, which no one has ever heard of, and then he directed Creed 2. So, and then outside of that, he has 2 episodes of Grownish on his platform. Oh yeah, by the way, he also directed a Machine Gun Kelly music video. So that gave him the credits to direct this $200 million Transformers movie. So yeah, put that aside with the fact that there's 5 screenwriters to this movie. Like, there's no way this film ever stood a chance. Like, I don't understand. Like, look, I can give a pass if 2 screenwriters are like a duo and they're used to working together. It's like, okay, fine, I give that a pass. When you have more than 2, like, it's a mess. Like, there's never been. Can you think of any good movie you've ever seen that has more than 2 screenwriters? I'd love to hear it, because I can't think of one.
They exist.
Yeah.
The problem is that, like, sometimes you get someone who wrote the book who gets credited, who gets technically credited as a screenwriter, even if they didn't work on it. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And this is why, by the way, the WGA is a joke as a union, because like they have all these ridiculous rules. They're the reason, by the way, that on a lot of productions there's 4 to 5 screenwriters, and it because of how the rules break down for credit. And so, but that's a topic for another day. So, but yeah, in terms of something that's personal, and that it doesn't even have to be personal to be good, but it's like that's what I think of when I think of 1 or 2 screenwriters. When you're dealing with 3 or 4 screenwriters, you usually maybe talking about a bigger production. But something like Gladiator, Gladiator had like 3 or 4 screenwriters on it. So there are examples of this happening, but the more screenwriters you have, the more editors you have, that it just becomes a nightmare of logistics and like nailing down what the vision of the story is.
Yeah.
I think 3 writers at the most is good, because I think 3 writers worked on Casablanca, and I mean, in fairness, 2 of them were twins, but with this 5, I think when you have more than 3 writers, you start putting in so many ideas, and no one knows what to cut, what to remove, how to make a cohesive whole, because you don't have the vision. When Scorsese was talking about how all the Marvel movies were theme park rides, this is something close to it. They have all of these writers, and I'm assuming that these are just the 5 credited writers. We can pretty much figure that there are more people putting in their own ideas. Oh, wouldn't it be great if we had a battle at the museum? Oh, wouldn't it be great if we had more comedy? Oh, let's send them to Peru and let's have them do more adventures there. Let's have Michelle Yeoh's bird woman thing go crazy, and let's have an opening where Galactus is going to destroy this world or what have you. Let's put in the human element, and let's have the little brother have sickle cell anemia or whatever he had. You have so many people putting in so many things that you start to lose focus, and you start throwing everything in the hopes that you're going to stumble into a story. That's the problem. This type of movie should not have 5 credited screenwriters, because it only suggests that it took 5 people at most to make a complete mess, to put something, make something that was loud but boring. What are they thinking? There's no point to having this long movie. I mean, this is what, 2 hours, 2 hours plus,
Yeah,
close to
two
two and
hours,
a half.
7 minutes.
Yes, and you would you're just throwing in so much. You're just throwing in so much here that you do lose focus, and you throw in so again that's all I keep going back to. You throw in so much that you have that at a certain point you lose the product, and there's nothing to follow. I mean, again, who here put in what that thing about the kid that could have been cut? If any sensible person, a script editor, that's why you
Well,
need script
this is the
editors.
problem with the film in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
There's so many characters in this movie who don't need to be in this movie at all. Because if you just pluck them out of the film entirely, it changes absolutely nothing. And that's how useful. But mostly all these characters are. I mean, outside of Mirage and the Puerto Rican kid, none of these other characters really needed to be in the film at all. Like, I don't even understand why the black girl was in the film, because you think to yourself, oh, is there going to be some kind of romantic angle here in this film with these two? No. I mean, they tease it a couple times, but this is what they do. They tease it and then never pay it off. And you're just like, okay, then why do we even do this in the first place?
Well, then
You
you,
know what I
had
hate?
the. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to say the thing I hate the most about this movie, and really I shouldn't, because like whatever, like the movie was just terrible to sit through. But at the very ending, where it's like the CIA are the good guys,
Yeah.
oh hey, we paid your brother's hospital bills. He'll be perfectly fine. It's like, first of all, how do you know? Did you poison my brother so I would help you? Like intrinsically,
Exactly.
like what are you doing? So I mean,
Mhm.
even the Michael Kelly role there, who's by the way a good actor playing, representing the CIA. It's just like, oh yeah, they're the deep state. They're the good guys. Sweet.
Oh, no, I really just forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry.
It's yeah, I have nothing to add. Well, no, none of the characters. I mean, the mom, really, the mom could have been cut entirely. What you could have had him be
His
the.
whole family could have been cut entirely. They don't play any
Yeah.
role in the film whatsoever. There's one scene where like the kid is like bullying Pete Davidson's robot as if he's actually like going to do something, because he's a tough kid from Brooklyn. And by the way, another thing I can't stand, like you New Yorkers are coasting off this reputation that you had like 30 years ago, like during the Rudy Giuliani era. It's like you guys still act like, oh yeah, Brooklyn, Brooklyn. Like, look, New York is an absolute crap hole of a city to live in. And it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse. Like, if Bumblebee was really in New York like today, like someone would probably push him in front of a train. That's how bad New York City is right now. So can you stop trying to live this past glory as if anyone outside of your little tri-state area gives an absolute flying F about New York?
And they couldn't put in No Sleep Till Brooklyn in this movie, which really needed it. But yeah, that whole thing about Mirage trying to communicate with him, and oh, you're like my bro, and all this. What is this? What is this? Are you really just playing dumb, or are you just dumbing things down so that you think your audience can relate? That was it, that guy who was running the chop shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, he could have been gone too. It was pointless. I will say that when they attacked the museum, this is how bored I was. They attacked when they're attacking the museum, and that guard comes upon both of them, and he tells them to freeze, and then the explosion goes. I was like, poor guard, whatever happened to him? I hope he's okay. My mind started wandering off into that unknown guard who was just doing his job and just gets blown away by these robots.
It's like your brain was trying to activate like a defense mechanism, because it was like, oh, this movie sucks. I want you to focus on something else because this movie sucks.
Yeah, and oh, that's what I wanted to mention. The kind of bitchy boss that the intern has, you could have cut her out entirely. What was she there for?
Like it's 2 hours and 7 minutes full of characters that had no impact in this film whatsoever. Like this is a movie where none of the characters had any impact. The plot was just completely thrown together. Nothing memorable about this film happened. It was simply a Transformers movie, nothing else. And I guess the big tease is, hey guys, we're bringing back G.I. Joe. Remember that franchise from 10 years ago that we stopped making because no one watched it then? We're bringing it back, baby.
Oh yes, and you see that's the thing. I thought the movie had ended, and then they put in that extra bit, and like, where is this going? This is taking up more time. And then when we get that twist about GI Joe, I thought, oh well, it's another Hasbro toy, so I guess they're going to connect it. Does that mean that well? No, I think they already kill off Channing Tatum's character in that.
I don't even remember at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not even
So
gonna lie.
so I was like, but why do we need to tie that in? Why do we need to have a Transformer GI Joe cinematic universe? Is that what the public really wants?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, at this point, if we're not putting Vin Diesel in one of these movies with his family, I don't care about any Transformers movie moving forward. I just don't. So either give me the Fast and Furious Transformers crossover, or you can just miss me with all these other films coming out here.
Yeah, but you
Yeah, and to answer that question by Neozoic
Yeah.
about multiple screenwriters, look, to me it's about oversight, because in the studio system you could have, technically, like you were saying, even more than the people that were credited for screenwriting. You had oversight, producers, directors, the heads of the studio approving all of this stuff before they even start shooting. So I personally, I'm biased from the 70s, where you have the director and maybe another screenwriter as being the only screenwriters credited. So I mean, that's kind of the model that I know, but not everybody is a visionary. So it like Top Gun Maverick, I'm sure Tom Cruise is an executive producer, and he basically had to approve the script that was written. And then I think, what's his name, Joseph Kosinski or
Yeah.
Joseph, I'm sure was in lockstep with Cruise about what the vision for that movie was going to be. So by the time they started shooting, they knew exactly what their goal was, and they executed it very well. It
that
just depends on how it's set up and the oversight that's there in the first place.
that's the job of the producer to make sure that everything flows well. You could have many writers on a film and still come up with a good one. Gone with the Wind really had more than, I mean, it's credited to just one screenwriter, but it had many screenwriters. I think even F. Scott Fitzgerald worked on it for a bit. So and it managed to become a cohesive whole. A, because it was based on a novel, and B, because David O. Selznick was overseeing everything. You could have one film written by one person, and it could be kind of chaotic. And Rob saw Cleopatra. That was written by one person, Joseph L. Mankiewicz. But to be fair, the man was forced to, direct in the daytime, try to write at night, and serve as de facto producer. I think the movie came close to killing him, literally killing him. It was overwhelming, and of course, there was no final script because he was practically worked to death. So there are times when you can do that, but this is a Transformers movie. This is not Gone with the Wind. To take five credited screenwriters, and again, I still argue that there are probably more people in this. To take five credited screenwriters to try to come up with a story, a prequel, and tie in so much, put in so much, it soon is going to grow too unwieldy and it's going to become chaotic. So it's not going to work. It's almost doomed from the start. That would be my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I mean, look, I guess we can kind of get into like the final thoughts of this movie here. If there's anything that we didn't mention, you guys can bring it up. But this was just an absolute waste of
Oh,
time. Like this was, it's I don't even think that it was just bad. It was like it was literally a waste of time from start to finish. None of these characters matter. The storyline, you've seen it 7 times already up to this point. Like this is such an absolute nothing of a movie. It's not even worth putting up a review for. I give this one a 1 out of 5, and just a one. Like the only thing that probably stopped me from giving it a 0 is that I didn't even have enough energy to hate this movie. Like it's just a terrible film. So it gets a 1 out of 5, and that's me being generous. So
Yeah, I felt
Well,
this way about a lot of movies we've seen this year, where it's hard to remember a lot of what happened, or important plot points or things to harken back on to bring up later. I felt that way about Guardians of the Galaxy. I felt that way about Fast X. You know, I'm hard pressed to say this, but I think Transformers movie was actually much worse than those movies. I mean, I think they're all crap, but this really did. There, it's so bad that there's nothing to really, in terms of
There's
like, say,
nothing
hey,
even like to pick apart. Like, it's
right.
just-
I mean, it's so short of just like, it's moving across the screen and you don't feel anything, and it's a kind of empty, kind of dull thudding feeling. It's just like, okay, we've seen this a million times. When's it over? I was so thankful when this movie finally was over. It was like, oh, sweet. There's no more movie. Good. I can get up. I can leave. But yeah, look, I gave it a 1 out of 5. I feel like that's pretty generous. Because there's just nothing here to even latch onto. I mean, even there's nothing memorable. It's a copy of other Transformers movies. There's nothing to see here except maybe, the Maximal Beast War, like diehard fans out there. But
yeah.
I wouldn't even recommend going to the theater for that. It has that little impact.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm pretty sure I fell asleep at least once, if not more. And I just kept thinking this movie is very loud, very long, but very boring. And there's nothing here. All I could think of is that when I was listening to the various robotic things, it's like, oh, that's Michelle Yeoh. I recognized her right away. And I just kept focusing. Oh, that's Michelle Yeoh. That's it. That's the whole, the whole big thing. I mean, I'm glad that she's getting more work, especially voiceover work, which doesn't require, I guess, as much preparation. Just read this, you read the script, and she read the script, so it wasn't particularly great. It was, I guess, nice that they went to Peru, or a version of Peru. Although I kept thinking, did they steal that old playing robot idea from The Mummy when they had like the old guy who's supposed to be the pilot? That's what I kept thinking. Did they steal Bumblebee's resurrection from The Search for Spock? Like literally, that's what happened in The Search for Spock. Uh, this movie's not. I mean, this movie's bad, but it's worse. It's boring, and that's probably worse. I think I'm a slightly more generous. I might give it a 1.5. But I think this is still better than the next chapter. So, so that.
See, like this movie, like despite everything I just said about this movie, I'm trying to decide whether it's still in my top 10 right now, worst movies of the year. So I'm trying to think, was this worse than Power Rangers? Was this worse than Across the Spider Verse? And was this worse than Hypnotic? Because those were also really bad films too.
No, no, no. Across the Spider Verse is one of the greatest films ever made. We've already established that it is your generation Citizen Kane. Did you
You
not
know what?
see
I'll,
all
I'll
those
say
reviews?
that I'll say Spider Man is worse because at least this film gave us an ending. Unlike that movie, so I think by default I'll keep Spider
No,
Man on the
you
list.
obviously did not see all the rhapsodic reviews for Across the Spider Verse. It's literally one of the greatest films ever made. So how dare you say that Transformers is better? How dare you? Yeah, yeah. This was no. I'll just say that it was worse than bad. It was boring. It was boring. Nothing was happening for all the Sturm und Drang that was going on screen, with all these museums exploding, with them going off to Peru, with these massive battles that are supposed to be taking place. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. And I'm amazed that the two guys behind me were so excited and into seeing all of these robots that soon become indistinguishable.
You know what
I
it
don't,
is?
what is it?
It's like a child playing with their toys, especially that final fight scene. It's just
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
child playing with their toys. That climax. I mean, it's that kind of thing where it's like it's not even like a video game, because at least a video game is an active experience. Where you are responding to the stimuli. You're not responding to anything here. You're just kind of watching it drift by as if you've taken some new pharmaceutical that's going to ease you into your early grave. So yeah, this movie, there's absolutely nothing to it. It's completely barren.
And I kind of argue if it does have an actual ending, because it does suggest that he's going to work with GI Joe and be part of that franchise. So does it really have an ending?
So now we're going to take two dying franchises from the 1980s and put them together and hoping that someone will actually watch this film.
Yeah, and then we'll find out that Channing Tatum not only is what is it, Duke, but he'll cross over from the 21 Jump Streets franchise to it and unite there. We're gonna have the ultimate Megaverse, where it's going to be Transformers, GI Joe, uh, the 21 Jump Street, and then Men in Black. They're all going to combine in one massive epic film that will put every film from 1939 to shame. Like Gone with the Wind and Wizard of Oz and Stagecoach. None of those will be as good as this massive epic film.
There's a part of me that does wonder at a certain point. It's like, when we do go like full Book of Revelations, like I wonder what kind of movies are going to come out in the last days. Like, is this like are we just going to get like, is the movies going to be a reflection of the times too, or is it just like, I don't know.
No, the answer to the question that's popped up. No, I don't have a YouTube. I might get one now, though. I have to figure out how to work YouTube. Because I can barely turn my laptop on.
Oh yeah, we've seen you. It's not great.
Yeah.
Well, we are going to wind things down here, get out here a little bit early. So you guys did see our review here for Rise of the Skywalker Beast? What movie we're talking about here? Rise of the Beast. Yeah, that movie. So that was our film. It sucked. I don't know what to tell you, but I mean, well, we have a very diverse group of movies coming out here in the next couple of days. So there will be some good films to talk about. We'll talk about a handful of movies next week. Like I said, we'll cover The Flash. We'll cover Asteroid City, Extraction 2, and The Blackening. So those are some films to look forward to next week. Rob probably won't be here next week because he's in the course of a move. So he'll get a week off from watching crappy movies with us here for 1 week. But since we're all wrapping things up here, we'll go ahead and give you the floor here. What you got coming up, Rob?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to talk about new movie I saw over the weekend that it made it into my top 5 of the year so far. It's called Master Gardener by Paul Schrader. I really love this movie. It's kind of an insane setup. So a former neo-Nazi is in witness protection, kind of like overseeing this garden, and it's a sort of way of like redeeming the shit he did in his past. But it's not, I need to preface it by saying it's not anything like, deep state or, globalist propaganda. It's a really, really good movie. If you know Paul Schrader, he's an incredibly, incredibly principled artist and has worked with Martin Scorsese. He's responsible for Taxi Driver, Raging Bull, etc. So has a great resume. So I would recommend it to anybody. I think it's a really good movie. I'm gonna be, living on the East Coast here in another week or so. So I'm looking forward to, I guess, being up later. So
being on the right side of the time zone.
Right, exactly. So, but yeah, I definitely want to get to a point where I am writing more, where I'm doing it regularly. So, until then, I'll see you guys on the other side of the country.
All right, and I think this is a question better suited for Rick here. Ben-Hur or the Ten Commandments?
I'm assuming that you mean the remakes, because Ben-Hur and the Ten Commandments, with Charlton Heston, are remakes of previous films. I'm going to lean Ben-Hur only because it's a massive film, but it never seems to drag. Ten Commandments, you do have some theatrical acting, particularly from Ann Baxter, but it was Cecil B. DeMille, and he wasn't known for being subtle. So I'm gonna go Ben-Hur, the '59 version. But Ten Commandments, it's great. It's as you guys know, it's one of my favorite GIFs. So what I've got coming up, more reviews. I'm still doing my weekly haiku, which I'm really enjoying. I'm beginning to really enjoy writing again, and as always, my beloved GoFundMe. Because I'm poor, I'm really poor, I'm desperately poor. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Just writing more reviews, working on my haikus, and starting to write more professionally. Wishing Rob the very best as he goes back to the East Coast. And yeah, it's a shame. Just when I was about to invite you to a Mariners game, you just go off. I'm sad.
You're not missing much. They suck anyway.
Hey, but one of my favorite players is over there right now. So,
Who's that?
Ty France.
No, I never heard of him. Anyway, so we're letting you guys know what we got coming up this week. Tomorrow night, Ballroom Podcast, episode 52. We're going to talk about Elliot Page or Eldon Page, or I don't know what name you want to use for these days, claiming that the voices in her head convinced her to be transgender. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. Jenna Ortega, there's a story that I got coming up for Bounding here. She was crying about toxic internet culture. So we'll bring back up the story about how she literally destroyed another actress's career using social media. So we'll talk about her being a massive hypocrite tomorrow. Megan Fox is called out for putting her kids in dresses. So now she threatens witchcraft against some right winger on Twitter or something like that. So that's come this whole weird thing. Tom Holland's talking about he needs to take another year off from acting because his last movie really broke him again, and the movie sucked anyway. So we'll talk about that. And then Nikolai Djokovic, who actually I haven't even checked the score of the game real quick. I'm going to see if this is final yet. What's going on here? Okay, it's they're in the fourth quarter and the Heat are up by 1, but potentially Denver can win the NBA championship here in the next few minutes. So if that does happen, we'll talk about how he got redemption after being completely screwed out of the MVP this year. So we'll talk about that later tonight. Try to see if I missed anything. So Neo saying thanks to Society, Rick, Kabuto, Excalibur, Bushpan, Duke, everybody in the chat. Good night, peace, and be safe. Be safe, my friends. And hey, I mean, he pretty much said all the names that I was going to say, so I don't have to say them again. So thank you to everyone who joined us here in the chat tonight. By the way, I'm not sure if Rob will be here Friday night for movie night. Will you?
I should be, yeah.
Okay, great, because we are watching your favorite movie in the whole world, which is Twister, this coming Friday on Rumble and on Twitch. So
excited for that. So yeah, the hardest thing to believe in that movie is that Bill Paxton and would be attracted to Helen Hunt. But that's fine.
Oh, that's harsh.
Are you calling Helen Hunt a grease monkey? Is that what you're calling her?
I mean, she's not an attractive woman, and at that point, she's literally, I don't know, pushing 50. So like, I don't get it. I mean, a year later, she won an Academy Award for her performance in As Good as It Gets. But her love interest is Jack Nicholson, who late 90s was, looking a little rough. So it's like, that's more appropriate. Just saying.
Who was the chick from Jurassic Park again? The first one who they
Laura
brought
Dern.
back in?
Laura Dern.
Yeah,
I hate her. I love her father, Bruce Dern.
Yeah.
I think she looks like a foot. I seriously think
I was going to mention that her co-star aged much more gracefully than she did, and it's funny because she was way younger than him in the first movie, and somehow they completely.
You mean Sam Neill?
Yeah, Sam Neill.
The one that I thought literally had dementia in the movie.
The new one.
The new one, yeah, I thought.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, none of the Jurassic World movies are good. Like, not a single one. So don't waste your time. Let's be honest. Only the first Jurassic World movie was ever any good. All the other ones that came out there, it might as well be like the Tremor series where they have like Tremors 8. They all should have just went straight to DVD because they were all garbage at that point. But
did we ever see that one? Did you ever see that one on the wheel?
I haven't added it on there. I mean, if I do watch it, I'll throw like the second one that was in San Diego that nobody likes. So I mean,
oh no, I want to see the one with Reba.
Yeah, no, I rewatched Tremors a couple months ago just because I was curious. I grew up watching it. I did not know it was Reba McEntire, and I was like, "That's not Reba McEntire." It is.
Yeah,
it absolutely is.
And I say this: I recently rewatched the second one, not all the other ones, but. I mean, honestly, for a straight to DVD movie, the second one really isn't that bad. Like,
no, I liked the second one. I liked it growing up, and I remember because I think they got Fred Ward to come back, but not Kevin Bacon. Yeah, yeah. No, I like it, but I also haven't seen it in a long time. So
was that better than Transformers
Yes.
Rise of the Beast.
Any of them. They were better than any Transformers movie you can think of right now. It's probably better. Yeah, so well, until then, we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Ballroom Podcast, talk about all those topics. So adios, everyone. We're hopping off. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.